Welcome to clickmyproject.com.
We discuss about a process of reactive power capacity enhancement of a PV grid system to increase PV penetration level in smart grid scenario. In this process, we use the PV cell for grid system. The PV cell using the grid system, the reactive and active power will be changing of the PV cell output because the final output of the PV cell will be changed based on the irradiation and the temperature. That cause the PV output is vary from every time interval. So we cannot get the constant power voltage. It variation affect the power quality in PV grid system. In our proposed, we design a new method or approach to enhance the power capacity of the PV system. In that process, we use the auxiliary circuit to improve the PV power. It is the basic circuit for use the PV cell based grid system in future. If the PV cell will be used as a grid system, there are some disadvantages will be there. It is for the reactive power capacitance. The reactive power capacitance will be maintained by using the fuzzy logic controller and also the auxiliary circuit. Here we give the input from the PV cell. Then that PV cell will be converted to the 3 base AC grid voltage by using the normal inverter. And also the PV cell will be parallel connected to the one auxiliary inverter. And the auxiliary inverter will be connected to the main inverter by the number of switches. And also the PV cell convert the DC current into the AC by the both auxiliary and also the main inverter. That inverter will be controlled by the fuzzy logic controller. That fuzzy logic controller gets the values from the output of the inverter and it will be connected when the auxiliary inverter connected to the circuit by operating the switches between the auxiliary inverter to the normal inverter. If the PV cell improve the sufficient amount of power from the normal value, so the main inverter does not connected to the grid. Suppose the PV cell output power will be reduced, then the main inverter will be connected to the auxiliary inverter for maintaining the power quality output in the output voltage. In that process will be done by using the fuzzy logic controller for monitoring the active and reactive power of the output voltage. And it is the flow diagram for our proposed work. Here the PV cell will be getting the output voltage and the MPPT will be used to maintain the PV cell output voltage with the desired DC voltage, and that will be go to the inverter, and the both main inverter and auxiliary inverter controlled by the PWM pulse width modulation technique. After the inverter, the LC filter will be used for reduce the harmonic of the 3 base AC grid source. After the filtering, the 3 base AC source will be connected to the 3 base load, and that 3 base load we will get the measure the voltage and current for the 3 base AC voltage, and that will be generated the reactive and active power of the desired AC output, and that will be monitoring by the fuzzy logic controller, and this fuzzy logic controller find out the reference value and it control the switches between the main inverter to the auxiliary inverter. Now the reactive power will be reduced, then the auxiliary inverter will be connected to the main inverter by using these switches. The switches will be operated by the fuzzy logic controller, and also the capacitor bank and inductor bank will be directly connected to the circuit. In when the inductor bank will be connected to the circuit, and when the capacitor bank connected to the main circuit, and when the auxiliary inverter connected to the main circuit, it will be decided by the fuzzy logic controller. The different types of bank will be added to the main inverter. The power will be reduced and decreased based on the different types of mode. The power will be maintained by those different types of inverter and inductor bank and capacitor bank, and using the fuzzy logic controller. If the power will be maintained in the PV cell based grid system, it will be give the renewable energy source based grid system in normal grid connection with low cost. Now we see about our model. In proposed system, we use the PV cell for connected the grid. So initially we design the PV cell with acting with generate the voltage by different irradiation. The irradiation will be generated by the random numbers. That irradiation will generate the random output voltage, and that random output voltage will be controlled by the MPPT controller, and it will be generate the pure DC PV cell output voltage. The MPPT controller getting the one MOSFET switches and the current sensor and voltage measurement port and diodes and capacitors. The voltage and the current will be give the input of the MPPT controller, and also the MPPT controller get the clock and reference signal, and use the force signal the MPPT control generate the signals, and that signals will able to control the MOSFET switches to maintain a pure voltage. The diode will be rectify the reverse voltage during the capacitor discharging. The capacitor will be maintain the pure DC voltage based on the MOSFET on off condition. And after the MPPT controller, the pure DC will be connected to the main inverter and also the auxiliary inverter. Both will be connected to the parallel, so the voltage will not be changed between the two inverters. And the inverter will be getting the 6 MOSFET switches, and the MOSFET switches will be able to control by the normal pulse width modulation technique. After the inverter, it will be connected to the RLC circuit, and that LC circuit reduce the harmonic from the output of inverter. So the output of the inverter will be get the pure sine wave, and that will be connected to the grid, and we measure the reactive and active power, and that measured reactive and active power will be go to the physiology controller, and the physiology controller will able to control the switches of auxiliary inverter and capacitor bank and inductor bank. And the capacitor bank, inductor bank and the auxiliary inverter will be connected to the same level. The auxiliary inverter is same as the main inverter, and it will be generated based on the 6 MOSFET switches, and it will be controlled by the normal PWM pulses. Now the capacitor bank will be connected to through the switches by using the MOSFET and also the IGBT switches. The capacitor bank and inductor bank and all will be interconnecting will be connected to the MOSFET switches to the main circuit. If the physiology controller working based on the fuzzy rule, the fuzzy rule will be generated manually, and it will be stored in the workspace, and we take the fuzzy logic input from the workspace, and we will give the fuzzy logic controller block. Now the fuzzy logic controller will be control the switches of the auxiliary inverter and inductor bank and the capacitor bank, and when it connected to the main circuit based on the reactive and active power by the generating rules. So the output will be maintained, the power quality of the output will be maintained, and the harmonic of the output voltage will be reduced by using this type of circuit. It is easy to maintain the power quality in the grid system by using the normal auxiliary converter only. Thank you.